Hey, I think we have a quorum. Let's just get started. First of all, let me welcome everybody to this edition of the WestGrid Town Hall. My name is John Longbottom. I'm the CEO of WestGrid, and I'm very pleased to provide this program today. Very excited about the speakers that we have. And obviously, this town hall is an opportunity for us to share what's going on and connect the community more broadly. And we'd like to ramp up our activity level and try to have one of these town halls every month. There's certainly lots to talk about, lots going on in our world, and very pleased to be hosting this session today. So this session is really about artificial intelligence and machine learning, an area that's becoming very widespread across a broad continuum of development and use cases. And in Western Canada, there's tremendous amount of energy from research and development to the application of this technology in industry and, of course, in the innovation life cycle. So today we want to shine a light on that activity and what's happening. And we're pleased to have three individuals presenting today. Cam Linke from Amii out of Edmonton in Alberta. Steve Lowry, who represents a really exciting organization called AIinBC, of course, in British Columbia. And Jacqueline Keena, who is heads up managing director of EMILI, a machine learning focused organization in the prairies. At the end, hopefully we'll have some time for some questions, but I'd like to get started by introducing Cam. And as we're in the Zoom world and still in COVID, and by the way, just thanks, Alex, just to let everybody know, please mute your mics unless you have a question. And of course, if you do have a question that you'd like to pose, and just get it quote on electronic paper, you can certainly do that through the chat, and we'll be monitoring that through the session today. So it gives me gives me great pleasure to introduce Cam Linke from Amii. He's the Chief Executive Officer. Him and I have been spending some quality time working on some initiatives, and he's a great leader, and certainly what they're doing at Amii is really truly exciting. And so I'd like to turn it over to Cam.
All right, thanks so much, John. Let's see. Oh, I can't share while you're still sharing. Let's see how long it takes for me to actually get my slides on the screen. Hopefully now, are you able to, people see my slides now? All right, great. Thanks again, John, for having me. It's great to see everybody. Obviously, AI and machine learning has been getting a lot of attention in the last little while. And core to all of that really is many of the advances that have been made in compute and our ability to leverage compute. So we're excited about the ongoing relationship that we're building with WestGrid, and certainly Compute Canada and WestGrid have been really big and important pieces of Amii and Amii's history. So I'm going to talk, I'll give you a really quick overview of Amii and of some of the things that we do, and excited for any kind of discussion from there, either here or afterwards. So really, as John mentioned, I'm from Amii, and really our overarching goal is really about inspiring machine intelligence for good and for all. And this is something that really has come from the history and the leadership of our group. And it's really about this idea of understanding intelligence, understanding how what the mechanisms of that are, but really thinking about a way of making tools to make ourselves better. And it's really this, as Rich says, it's kind of this really natural, human and natural continuation of what we do as humans. We've always made tools and we've always leveraged them to be able to improve. And artificial intelligence is is a great piece of that, and we see as an enormous piece of what that's going to mean going forward. And so we're a pretty unique organization in that we've been around for about 20 years. The genesis of it was, back in 2002 with an investment from the province of Alberta and from the Alberta Ingenuity Fund at the time, starting and investing in machine learning and investing at the U of A to be able to grow that group there. And over the years, that's allowed us to attract and retain some incredible people in this field. And really, we're at this point now of leveraging these this work and this research and this training that's been done over this time, and be able to try and accelerate how companies adopt AI as kind of the second piece of that really needs to happen. I'd be remiss without starting, and for the most part, and talking about the just incredible researchers that we have in our group. Many of these folks are at the University of Alberta, but you'll recognize many of these as machine learning leaders across Western Canada, across Canada, period. And it's been this incredible piece that we've been able to begin to act as this catalyzer for artificial intelligence in Western Canada. And really, it's been great to see the Western Canadian ecosystem in AI really grow over the last 5 years, especially. As I mentioned, we really see ourselves as having two footprints at Amii. One really on the academic side, and the core of what we do and the core engine of what we do is driving out academic excellence in research and training. And that knowledge, that leading edge research gives us the knowledge, talent, technology to really drive out capacity in industry and drive out industry adoption. And the way we think about industry adoption at Amii is really that word that I use, which is capacity. So it's the maybe overused analogy of teaching somebody to fish instead of giving them a fish. Data and machine learning, we really believe are underlying every industry, or will be underlying every industry going forward. And so if we're just saying, okay, we'll throw something at us, we'll throw a problem at us, we'll throw a solution back at you, we're not actually moving industry forward. We're not giving industry that underlying expertise and competitive advantage that they need to be part of this shift. And so our goal is really to make sure that the companies and the organizations that we work with, they have that capacity internal to what they do, and that capacity to use machine learning, regardless of kind of where they're at in that journey. And so we really like to think of this, on the industry side, about companies existing on this machine learning adoption spectrum, everywhere from exploring, hey, I heard this is important to my industry. I just learned to spell I want to know what I can do with it now, and looking at what the potential is for their company, to starting to put that first toe dip in the water and start to have some proof cases of how this could be used in what they're doing, through to it being something that they're implementing and taking advantage of, and really moving on to this point where it's a competitive advantage for them as it's operationalized, and as something that they're actively advancing as part of what we do. And so we really look at what meeting companies where they're at on this spectrum, and being able to help move them along this journey. We have about 6 areas that we end up working with companies on in this. So we have the industry piece, which is really helping upgrade companies' existing use of machine learning. We work with early stage startups in accelerating their use of machine learning to help them build that core piece into their business model, into what they're doing right off the bat. We have an advanced tech piece where, we're world leaders in, many of the techniques that companies are looking to use in machine learning. And how do we make sure that, companies that connect with us are able to take advantage of that? And then through this idea of really, upskilling, training, and placing talent through, different training programs, through making sure that the talent that we, help create at the university has access to incredible opportunities, and, being able to continue to act as, coaches, mentors, and advisors through things like apprenticeships to be able to build and grow the AI and machine learning leaders of the future. As I mentioned, it's been this kind of 2-decade journey for us to get to this point, where, as I mentioned, back in 2002, Amii was founded with 4 PIs, and began to grow from there. We recruited people like Rich Sutton to join Amii and to launch, who came and launched the RLAI lab here. Along the way, we've seen advances like Chaba's development of the UCT algorithm, Jonathan Schaefer solving checkers, and continual growth of our research group. And the really interesting thing for us in this is that we've played in this huge spectrum when it comes to compute, where on one hand, the work that Yutaka did that won a Thailand Innovation Award was really about how do we take a process, which was tuberculosis diagnosis, how do we take that process that is extremely expensive, has to get sent off to labs, and takes an extreme amount of time, and can we do that on a really cheap PC and a webcam, so that locally, with just a quick blood sample, these types of things can be diagnosed. That work was done by Yutaka, and basically the idea of essentially shrinking compute was a big part of what Yutaka and the group did there. On the other end of that, we have DeepStack, which was the first poker program to beat poker professionals that Heads Up No Limit Texas Hold'em. And that used just an ungodly amount of compute resources to be able to train. And really, you could talk to Mike and the team there, and if those resources weren't available, that that would never have been able to take place. And so really the really interesting thing we're seeing in machine learning now is you're seeing problems at both ends of this spectrum, and trying to figure out and basically be able to meet compute where it's at, in a sense, to be able to right size it for the problem at hand, has been a big thing, and a big thing that we've had to do and have done throughout our history. The last 5 years, we've seen a big acceleration in the pace of development around the ecosystem in AI here. A huge catalyst was obviously the establishment of the Pan-Canadian AI strategy, with Canada being the first country with a national AI strategy. Around that time is when we spun out Amii as a nonprofit to really have that footprint inside and outside of academia, to be able to continue to drive out that academic research and training, but also to be able to drive that into capacity outcomes in the ecosystem here. And we've seen things like our research team grow, labs set up in in Edmonton, Alberta, and Western Canada, and the continued growth of the expertise that we have here in Western Canada, and the growing connections between those. A couple just really quick things, as I mentioned, we're very fortunate to be a very broad-based machine learning group, but have a few areas of leadership. One, as I mentioned earlier, was reinforcement learning. As many people will know, Dr. Sutton we've been at the forefront of foundational games research. And when we speak about, areas that have been historically, huge compute users for us, this has been one of them. Some of the things like, solving the game of checkers, which Dr. Schaefer did. David Silver starting what became AlphaGo while he worked with Rich and Martin Mueller while he was a PhD student here at the U of A. And some of the core pieces that we're seeing as part of what advances are happening and continue to be used in machine learning, like the arcade learning environment and poker being used as test beds for many of these AI systems and algorithms. So we've really seen that foundation, and a lot of that's been built as part of our group at Amii. The other part, and I think it's top of mind with everybody right now, is this intersection of AI and precision health. Whether it's through devices like intelligent artificial limbs, whether it's through diagnosis with the work that Russ and his group did around schizophrenia, or whether it's working with companies here like Okaki was one company we worked with around helping make opioid overdose predictions. We're really seeing health as this enormous area, in the intersection of AI and health as this just enormous area of growth going forward. So just to close off, and thanks again, John, for having me. We're really seeing AI impacting all sectors of our economy. We really have that world leadership here in Western Canada, and it's just incredible advantage for Western Canada's economy and innovation ecosystem. So, really excited for both what the future is going to hold for Amii and WestGrid, and what the future is going to hold for us working together. So, thanks so much again for having me, and please reach out. I'd love to connect.
Hey, Cam, thanks very much for that. It's great to get the message out there. You're doing some really terrific things, and I do feel very excited about what we can accomplish together, and more as a broader ecosystem, which is why I thought it would be a good idea to at least present what we're doing in Western Canada. So what Amii is doing is fabulous, and let's just keep that train rolling. And my hope is that you'll get to see what's going on in the rest of Western Canada, and they'll get to understand what you're doing, and hopefully we'll start making better connections and create a much deeper working relationship. So thanks very much, Cam, and I hope you'll hang on and take in the rest of the program. And at the end, if we have some questions, we can field them to the various speakers. So thank you, Cam.
Yeah,
Greatly
absolutely.
appreciate
Thanks,
it.
John.
Yep. So next speaker is Steve Lowry, and Steve, the Executive Director of AIinBC. And they're doing some really exciting work in building a fundamental industry that has AI as its fundamental core and the basic element of it. And so, Steve, I'd love to turn the program over to you now to tell us a bit about what you're doing and what your objectives are, and maybe some of the proof points of that good work.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I really appreciate the invitation to come speak to the group here. And yeah, I'd love to kind of bring up to speed what we're doing. Let me attempt to share my screen. I'll let my turn on the dance floor to kind of tango with Zoom here and see if we are successful in that endeavor. Oops, one second. Are you seeing my slide deck or?
Yeah, we could see your screen. I don't think it's not in present mode.
If it presents, does it go? Are you seeing that full?
There it is, right on.
Okay. Excellent.
You're rocking.
Okay, great. Yeah, so thanks again. So, I'm the executive director of AIinBC, so the Artificial Intelligence Network of BC, and the industry body for AI in the province. We work with sort of the nexus or catalyst for industry, academia, and government with the goal of driving BC's economy forward with AI initiatives. Today, I'd just like to sort of tell you initially what our overall focus is, and then I'll move into where BC's AI activities are situated kind of in Canada and globally, and talk about some of the great things our companies and researchers are doing in BC, and then I'll get into specific programs that AIinBC offers, in hopes that some of your audience are interested to get involved and participate in some of those. So always keen to bring on more members and serve the community better. So yeah, AIinBC is at heart, it's a member-driven organization. We're a nonprofit, and we're really here to work with basically anyone in AI and try and drive BC's economy. So I'll take you through what we think is our value pillars and how we provide value to the community. So firstly, in ecosystem growth, we're here doing a number of community events. So as a membership organization, we bring out our members whenever we can to, pre-COVID was certainly in-person events. We've done a number of virtual ones now, webinars and otherwise. Recently, kind of culminating in our virtual conference, Crossover AI, which we held partly in December, although we staggered some of the days, and there's actually one more day coming up on that. I'll tell you a bit more about Crossover shortly, but just an example of bringing the community together for some great thought leadership discussions and networking. Talent development, we do really passionate about putting diverse talent to work in AI and tech in general. We've got a great initiative called Athena Pathways, training 500 women in AI, and I'll get into that a bit too. But really, the goal is to sort of find great talent and match them with great companies and great potential within BC and potentially Canada. Capital sourcing is another one where we can help startups. Number of the board members we have are growth stage AI startups, and certainly capital in Canada is something that is going to help these companies grow better. And so we try and source it even globally. We recently did an event where we had BC AI companies pitching global investors for capital. So keen on top of our mind. Anything that's going to help startups grow and scale is something we want to try and support. And then finally, kind of leadership is how we keep it top of mind for ourselves and remind ourselves to always be trying to push in terms of pro-social AI, doing things that putting capital and resources and people towards companies that are trying to change the world for better. We're quite passionate about, as I say, gender diversity in tech, and so wanting to really push the envelope in these areas, as well as just new innovations. There's some great things happening with our universities here, in particular, researchers doing groundbreaking work, and we really want to be on the global stage whenever we can, showcasing and drawing attention to the fantastic things that these smart people are coming up with every day. So that's kind of how we think of our input into the community. But stepping back and looking at the big picture, many on the call are probably aware of the AI institutes across Canada. Certainly, Cam spoke about Amii, but you have Vector Institute in Toronto, EMILI in Montreal, and keen to hear actually from Jacqueline on this call about what's happening in the prairies. But where we situate Vancouver and all this is having some real strengths around visual computing, computer vision, generative models, even companies working on AGI and robotics. While there is fantastic kind of long heritage of researchers across Canada, some of the other centers, whether it's Jeffrey Hinton, Joshua Bengio, Rich Sutton, Vancouver, where we're really actually quite strong is in terms of commercializing. So look at the sort of graph there, we see that we have the second highest number of startups with AI startups in Canada, behind Toronto. Really sort of punch above our weight on that one. And so we've got a number of companies building great products and selling them throughout the world. A survey we did, 40% of our members listed worldwide as a market, as the kind of primary market they have, above and beyond, just call it BC or Canada or even the States. So lots of commercial activity happening, and we're there to kind of create sparks between the universities and the companies that are growing and hiring people. And turning to sort of what the look and feel of our labor market is as it relates to startups and otherwise is, you're finding very high quality on the lower axis for labor quality in Vancouver comes up high. At the same time, the cost of hiring this talent is somewhat low so far. Now we're finding more and more. I think companies are realizing the fantastic talent we have here and starting to drive up salaries as a natural progression. But whether it's companies like Amazon, or Fujitsu has put their global AI head office in Vancouver, and MasterCard, they're hiring up and really helping grow the ecosystem, understanding the potential we have here with the people working here. So it's a pretty exciting time for all of that. And much of this talent comes from is the universities. So that's, I spoke about SFU and UBC. Producing, thousands of students a year. These two schools combined, if you put them together, would be #1 in Canada in terms of high performance computing papers published, top 10 in the world on that. They would be #1 globally for papers in computer graphics. So, real specialties in these areas. We've got experts that are noted for their contribution in these fields globally. For example, Jeff Clune of OpenAI announced that he'll be teaching at UBC. We've got Frank Wood, has a sizable lab doing some really kind of innovative work with probabilistic programming. Richard Zhang out of SFU. So it's really leading lights certainly on the university side. And then where we have in helping the commercialization side and partnering actually between the two is this Canada's digital supercluster. They fund companies throughout or initiatives throughout Canada, but I think most of them have been in BC as of late. And we really benefited from that. The sector has with 24 projects that are funded by the supercluster, being AI at the core, and about 18 that have AI anticipated through later stages. So lots of activity. And what we're doing with these organizations are coming together with AIinBC under what we're calling the Horizon Initiative, which is a plan to basically support commercialization and research in a network of sorts across Western Canada, creating institutes similar to the other institutes in Canada and a few other things. But beginning with our first project we're fundraising on is one for AI in health. Obviously a topical area, and I'll talk a bit more about that, but we've got some great thoughts and potential and frankly momentum around AI in health. So we're working with these organizations to see that through and talk to government about how we can grow some of these opportunities. And so just drilling down a bit into areas where BC is strong with AI, certainly health, as I say. Medical imaging would be an example. We've got Optima, who sits on our board. They're about a 60-person company creating scopes for AI, for skin cancer detection using computer vision and AI. Other medical imaging companies would be like Change Healthcare, a sizable US company, but with a lab in Vancouver. Moving to drug discovery, AbCellera is a real success story as of late. Probably noticed the largest biotech IPO in Canadian history. And, it's an example of a great team coming together at the perfect time in terms of helping the world with COVID. They're in late stage trials with their antibody discovery work using AI for COVID treatment. Other drug discovery companies, Zymeworks, Variational AI, the list goes on there. And natural language processing is kind of the other larger bucket of companies. OneQubit is an example. They do quantum computing, but have a sizable model around AI for natural language processing, dealing with health records. Another good startup called Intelligent is deep into the electronic health records space, using NLP to help doctors and patients work together through it with the health records between them. So just a ton of activity in health. And moving to another sector, a little kind of mini cluster we have that's growing though is robotics. Sanctuary AI is a kind of high profile company in that space with the founder having founded D-Wave and whatnot before, Jordy Rose. So they have an interesting thesis around AI, which is that if you want computers to work well in the human environment, you kind of need to situate them in the human form factor and actually put them to work in spaces where humans are, in the world that we've created for ourselves, with the goal of these computers and robots and maybe androids helping humans in their work. So pretty sort of striking visuals coming out of this company and some interesting ideas, but there's a lot going on around Sanctuary. Some of the more called traditional robotics companies, maybe A&K Robotics, start up with some great basically robots that work in cleaning, like kind of janitorial services for airports. AIS is building a portfolio of IP around robotics, and so they've started with robots that work in a greenhouse setting. So we've got companies been doing robots for mushroom picking, and kind of the list goes on. So it's a pretty exciting one, and frankly, an area that hasn't been kind of dominated by any ecosystem yet in the world in terms of the cross mix of AI and robotics. Certainly you see lots of robots, the history of it in Japan, and you see in the East Coast there was Boston Dynamics recently bought actually by Hyundai, but there's no sort of sector or region that sort of owns robots, and there's a real potential with what we have in BC in terms of momentum in this one to really get on, help put BC more on the map with some of the work that we're doing there. So exciting one. Other areas would be fintech. FinAI is a great example with bots that they serve banks and financial institutions around the world with who white label their bots that enable individual consumers to interact with the banks. Security, Vigilon was recently purchased by Motorola, and they do security cameras using AI. Other security uses would be certainly cybersecurity is actually the fastest growing AI subcluster here with a company like Command and others. There were some great startups doing cybersecurity work. And then agriculture as another strength. Terramera is doing some really interesting kind of breakthrough science around minimizing pesticides. And they're doing that through using AI, computer vision to understand what plants need pesticides and which ones don't, so you can minimize the kind of, the spray of it across a broad scale of crops. So lots of activity, lots of companies keen to work and partner with others, and we're here to help facilitate that. So just kind of rounding out the presentation today, I'll get into just, our offerings, I guess, our programs, and again, enthusiastic to work with others who see something in these that they want to take part in. Our recent conference, as I spoke about, is Crossover AI. We had very well attended, I think 1,200 people registered for that. The topics covered the pandemic's acceleration of digital technologies. We got into robotics, we got into AI and the future of food. Fantastic speakers, including AJ Agarwal, Gary Marcus, and Hyundai, kind of on the heels of their Boston Dynamics acquisition. So we've got one event remaining on this. I'd love to have you out on March 4th if anyone's interested. It's focusing on global AI, building AI tools across borders. We're partnering with the Korean Business Association on that. So other events we'd be doing sort of webinars. Keep an eye on our events page, and certainly we keep our members up to date with emails as to all that's happening in our world. And the next item that we've done is Crossover Launchpad. And so these are sort of dovetailing with the pillars that I spoke about at the start. This is for capital, where we've got 8 of BC's top AI startups to pitch the world. We've got over 40 investors attending, VCs and others from around the world that invest in AI. And our companies got to tell their story, and we had prizes from AWS and HubSpot and others. So pretty fun event. But again, it's important for our startups to get access to global capital to be able to grow at the scale necessary now in this globally competitive world. We then really focus a lot. Actually, much of our time is on improving diversity within the workplace, within tech and AI. Our project that's funded by the Digital Supercluster is Athena Pathways. It's a consortium with 4 universities, a number of companies for training and hiring, and a goal of training 500 women in AI. And we've now helped 200 so far in the last year. So well on track and doing some really interesting work here. So we're looking for hiring partners on that. If you are looking to, anyone's looking to make their workforce more diverse, love to speak to you about becoming a hiring partner and getting access to the talent that we have through our job board and networks into the university and elsewhere. Then we have moving to education, as we see as part of our mandate as well, where we our AI for growth courses, kind of workshops, 2-day workshops, working with Northeastern University, are training SMEs around best practices for growing their companies using AI, how to deal with data, ethical implications, how to hire for these roles in particular, who to put to work to, what exactly is level of kind of data scientist or machine learning researcher you need, try and provide advice on that and tips for how to find these people and how to network and locate them, which is another area we help with as recruiting service around AI talent. Our kind of service model on this is similar to any recruiter with a fee for placement. But what's different than most recruiters is our amazing network in the AI space and our advisors who can really help us understand exactly the best talent for a particular spot, understand exactly what the different facets of this very complex and multifaceted world in terms of skill sets, understanding what's exactly the right fit for the right role. So feel free to reach out to us on that if you could use help hiring. Which really brings us then to the bottom line is the AI and AIinBC membership. Really welcome companies and people to get involved as members. We offer updates on news and events, of course, access to talent, as I've been speaking about. We'd like to showcase our members globally for working with government and trade commissioners and telling the story of BC companies. We're going to focus on our members whenever we can. Occasionally have special offers to members, and a few supports of our cause and our mission to make AI more ethical and representative of society. Would love to have you involved and helping us build Canada's economy through this exciting sector. So that, I think, is pretty much the end of it today. Appreciate the time, and hopefully you found that somewhat informative. John, happy at the end to take questions and whatnot, but we'd love to work further with your organization as we go.
Thanks very much, Steve. That was a great overview, and again, exciting work going on across our region. And here's what's happening in British Columbia. Very powerful programs, lots of growth potential, but most importantly, a lot more opportunity for Western Canada to connect and build even more value as we move forward. So thanks very much for that, Steve. And yeah, if you wouldn't mind hanging back, there could be a few questions at the end that you may help to engage in. So now I'd like to introduce Jacqueline Keena, who's going to talk about EMILI. So we're lucky enough here to have actually a Western Canadian representation, British Columbia, Alberta, and the Prairies. And I think that's just so fabulous that we have this kind of a pool of activity and talent. And so let's learn a little bit about what EMILI's about. So Jacqueline, if you can get started. Okay, you're a pro. You're ready to rock.
Good morning. Well, I've had some time with Cam and Steve, so I'm lucky to be third here and have had the advantage of a little bit more time to figure out how to do it. So I'm going to present here in full screen, I think. Here we go. So good morning, everyone, or good afternoon if you're in Manitoba or further east. It's 12:40 here in Winnipeg, and I'm really pleased to be here. Thanks, John, for the invitation. It is great to speak to this audience today and with folks like Cam and Steve from Amii and AIinBC, because we have great AI and machine learning talent and organizations in the prairies. So it's really a pleasure to get to speak to this group today and about what EMILI's work is. So EMILI stands for the Enterprise Machine Intelligence and Learning Initiative. And I think that as I go through my presentation today, it will become really clear why all of those words make up our name and all of the sort of different facets of the work that we do. And so I think a little bit of a different spin compared to Amii and AIinBC. EMILI focuses specifically on the application of intelligent technologies like AI and machine learning for the digital agriculture ecosystem. And so in some cases, I think we're a use case of what intelligent technologies can do for a specific industry. We see a lot of implications and applications for other sectors that are important to the Western Canada economy. I think about health, of course, as was mentioned, as well as advanced manufacturing and other sectors that support or interact with agriculture. But our focus as an organization is on the digital agriculture ecosystem. So who actually is EMILI? We're a nonprofit, an industry-led nonprofit that was founded in 2016. These are a few logos of some of our board members from industry here in Manitoba, as well as the post-secondary sector. And we're really pleased to have this great board that in large part has been here since our founding. And when they founded this board, or this organization rather, really their purpose was to understand how the integration of intelligent technologies are able to be leveraged to grow the Manitoba economy. The initial focus of the organization was around tech integration and that future skills piece, knowing that those so readily go together and sort of one begets the other. And as we keep going in this presentation, I'll bring us here to what our current activities are in digital agriculture. So starting with innovation and research, intelligent technology, integration, skills training and talent development, really a lot of the things that Steve was just mentioning around talent pipelines, access to talent, skills and workforce development. Really, a lot of the same things are going on at EMILI. And then last but not least, capital enablement as we think about the ability for startups and scale-ups to keep growing in Canada. So the first one that I want to talk about, the first pillar here, is actually this innovation and research pillar. And we have an incredibly exciting project that we're involved with two researchers, Drs. Chris Bidnosti and Chris Henry at the University of Winnipeg. And I will speak about it for a few moments, but first I want to just play it's just a minute-long video that does a really great and I think engaging job of talking about our project. So I'll kick that off now and hopefully it works.
The intersection of equipment, technology, and crop science is at the core of a fundamental transition in Canadian production agriculture today.
Machine learning will allow farmers to use less pesticide and less herbicide and have less of an impact on the environment.
We're creating data specific to Manitoba so that we can make the important decisions that we need to make for the Canadian food supply chain.
A person in their garden, in their backyard, because they're small, can really go around and with precision pick individual weeds or snip off a leaf that has rust on it. You can extend that to something on the size of a field and apply that same precision and that same care on a plant-by-plant basis to an entire Canadian prairie farm.
This work benefits our students, it benefits our professors. I've never met a curious mind yet that doesn't want to do something that has impact, and by connecting to the people that will ultimately use the innovations, it's a win-win for everybody.
We know that the University of Winnipeg EMILI project is innovative, and that through it, the digital ag ecosystem will grow, and digital ag innovation will be fueled here on the Canadian prairies.
So that project and some of the applications of that work actually touch on something that Steve was saying about AI for identification of pests and weeds in the field. And so we're really excited to be working with the University of Winnipeg on this. The project's been underway for about 18 months now. And one of the objectives is to develop a labeled data set of prairie crops and weeds. We see the applications of AI on all sorts of digital agriculture sectors across the world. And for some of those things to be applied here in Canada and to really benefit the Western Canadian economy, we need this foundational data set of prairie crops and weeds to be able to harness those algorithms and apply them here in Western Canada. So some of I think the most obvious application of this work is something like a see and spray technology. And so this is the idea that a sprayer outfitted with many cameras moves across a field at the regular speed that a sprayer would move across the field, something like 7 miles per hour, up to 15 miles per hour actually, and has the ability to discern the difference between crop and weed, spray just the weed. It dramatically reduces the amount of herbicide that gets sprayed on the field. And that of course has a profitability implication, but also a significant sustainability implication with much less herbicide being sprayed. So that's underway right now. And as that label data set continues to be generated, both in the lab and in full scale fields, these are some images from our field work this past year, we're gonna make that data set available to Canadian industry and academia. As part of this project, we've received funding from the federal government, from Western Economic Diversification, and we want to make sure that through this project and through this federal investment, that we make sure we give a leg up to Canadian innovators, be that industry or academia. And so that's why we are making this labeled data set first available to Canadians for a period of time. So that's some of our most notable work in the innovation and research pillar. Intelligent technology integration, this is one of the pillars that really EMILI was founded on. And so the idea here is working directly with industry to think about how intelligent technologies can impact and accelerate their business processes. One of the, I think, most significant ways we do this work is through an annual conference called Agriculture Enlightened. We had our first conference in November 2020. At the height of COVID here in Manitoba, we were in really significant code red lockdown at the time. It was entirely virtual. And we brought together 370 people from across the prairies to talk about digital agriculture application. One of the value propositions, I think, of Agriculture Enlightened as we continue to have this conference on an annual basis will be that we take an entire sector approach. We focus on how intelligent technologies will work in each of the sectors along the agri-food value chain. And so bringing together people who all work in agriculture but might not cross paths as readily is something that I think is going to be significant for this annual event, as we see the ability for this not only cross-sectoral, but also within industry, within the ag industry, but just in different areas to collaborate and work together and see these areas of synergy. The other one, great to see Steve also talk about the events being hosted by City Age in partnership with AIinBC and EMILI. We were involved in this Future of Food campaign, and we have 3 more events scheduled for later in 2021. Around climate change, data sharing, and the ability to accelerate startups and scale ups. And these events, I think, were a bit of a pivot as a result of COVID. We probably would have had these events in person in Manitoba, but the ability to have them online has really brought together a much larger audience and allowed us to bring in more experts and sort of just more strategic input from speakers from all over the world. And so those events have been great to be a part of. And I would encourage you to just hit up their website there, cityh.com/food, and register for the upcoming events, because I think they're all really valuable. Really valuable from a expertise and information and education perspective, but also a great way to collaborate and find other people interested in the same work across Canada and actually around the world now that those events are virtual. Skills training and talent development was another core principle that EMILI was founded on, ensuring that people have the skills required to really take advantage of opportunities that are presented in this digital agriculture ecosystem. I've been mentioning digital agriculture throughout this presentation, and when EMILI started this work, one of the things we found was that there wasn't a well agreed upon common definition of digital agriculture. And so in partnership with a group called MyApp, the Manitoba Industry Academia Partnership, we established this digital agriculture table in Manitoba, somewhat modeled after the Canadian Economic Strategy tables. And one of the first things that we did with this group of 40 industry and academic leaders in the province was establish a common definition. And it was actually pretty easy to do because everyone had a pretty good idea of what digital ag meant to them. But the definition that we settled on here is the application of intelligent technologies to any or all of the components of the agri-food value chain before, during, and after on-farm production. And I think that that's a really significant definition, because it really shows that we are talking about agriculture all along the value chain, not just the on-farm production and not just even the value-added processing component, but it goes all the way to the consumer, restaurants, and markets. All of those things can be encompassed under digital agriculture. So this table, this group of leaders that we've assembled in Manitoba, they work together to really seize the digital ag opportunity for the province. And some of their priorities or I should say their top 3 priorities are written here, not necessarily in this order, but these are the most pressing 3, and they are all interrelated. Skills and talent gap identification, understanding what is the current skills gap and where is that going to continue to be as digital agriculture scales in the prairies. In order to address that, education and training priorities for past, present, and future students. When we talk about this, of course, we're talking to post-secondary leaders, but we're also interested in what that future skills gap will be and how we address that. And then also, what are some of the existing skills gap for people already in the labor force, and how do we work to address that? So people who are already in the workforce, thinking about things like micro-credentials as an effective tool to give that skills or competencies top up in a relatively compact way so that they can stay engaged in the labor force. And then last but not least, research and innovation alignment between industry and academia. So how do we create collision spaces or opportunities for industry and academia to align and talk about, needs, whether that's research opportunities that can address needs, or industry flagging where they see next potential opportunities as being, so that they can work more collaboratively together. So that group has been established for about a year now, and we're starting to see these synergies happen and the outcomes of that group working together, and it's quite exciting. And then the last slide that I'm trying to get here is capital enablement. And so this is something also that was already spoken about today, but this idea that in order for startups and scale-ups to be successful in Canada, they will need capital. The reason why this isn't just called something like access to capital or venture capital is because we know that there's all sorts of different supports and capital and investment that are required by startups and scale-ups, depending on where they are at in the journey. So this is just a picture of a heat map for all sort of VC deals done in Canada in 2019. And you can see that the circles are pretty small in the prairies. If you add up the deals done in Manitoba and Saskatchewan, they total less than 2% of the total deals done in Canada. And so we know that, one option is for these companies to move to other places in Canada and maybe increase their chances of securing the capital that they need. But the other likely alternative for them is that they move somewhere else in the world. And so we want to do what we can to ensure that that doesn't happen, so that the talent, the IP, the investment that has already been made into these companies remains in Canada. And so along this, or in this capital enablement pillar, some of the things that we're working on are mentorship and advice and just guidance for entrepreneurs as they continue to grow their company, but also support to actually get that capital infusion sort of wherever it falls along the continuum, things like pitch prep, and then some advice and understanding about what kind of capital do you actually need at the stage of where your company is at. Is it a grant, a loan, angel investing, or VC? And so I just touched on it there. Understanding intellectual property considerations, data ownership and privacy. These are the kinds of things that come along with capital enablement as we work to support startups and scale-ups. And I believe that is my last slide. So thanks very much, John, for having us. And we're certainly really looking forward to all the connections that come out of today's town hall. Thank you.
That's super, Jacqueline. Thanks so much for giving us a perspective on the prairies. As an ex Winnipeg boy, fondly in my heart. So I really look forward to what we can be doing more specifically in the prairies moving forward. So thank you, Jacqueline, for giving us that perspective. And what I wouldn't mind doing, just opening up for a couple of questions. There were a couple of questions in the chat. For example, to Cam, do you have any research initiatives for implementing AI in either ASICs, FPGAs, or analog IC circuits? So some interesting technology research. Do you have any of those ring a bell in terms of any research initiatives?
Right now, within our group, I don't know of any kind of right off the bat. I mean, I know people who are kind of trying to utilize those technologies to accelerate research. But as far as doing research, on improvement in those areas specifically, I'm not sure. That being said, I know we just added a new prof whose research area I'll loosely say is in that, and I would expect that there's going to be some crossover there, and there are some other folks across campus that are connected into what we do that are doing some research in that area. So as far as like our core group, I don't think so, but within our kind of extended network, a little bit. And I'm happy to, if you have some kind of specifics on it, feel free to reach out and I can chat more with our team about it.
Yeah, what I'll do is we've got this recorded, and we'll keep track of those conversations and make the linkages. And for those of you who have posted in the chat, and I was going to just offer Alex, I was wondering, do you have an advertisement on training?
I have just a few slides that I want to mention. So we have the upcoming training, big training starting in April. And I just wanted to talk briefly about it, webinars and a few other events. It'll take, I don't know, a couple of minutes probably.
Okay.
So do you want me to do it now?
Yeah, you might as well. We're
Sure.
getting to the top of the hour.
Can I quickly say something?
Yes, you sure
Hi.
can.
This is a question more or less for Steve and Alex. I have been working on the project on COVID, and with the help of Compute Canada, we have done in a lot of simulations. We have over 20 terabyte of data about the simulation of COVID protein, a spike protein for vaccine designs. So because of this, a lot of information, I don't know too much about AI. I was wondering if you guys up for collaborating with me on try to predict the new variants of COVID on the spike protein.
So Jennifer, I'll tell you what we'll do is we'll make the contacts, and we'll have this discussion outside of this. It sounds very interesting. Sounds
I
like.
really have to go at 11 o'clock, so that's why I have to.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm glad you posted.
Yes,
We will.
thank you so much, John, for bringing the group of speakers like this. It's really, really great opportunity for me to listen into this thing. And please do pass along my contact. I do have your information. I will send a follow-up emails about this. Thank you.
Please reach out. We can facilitate those. Thanks, Jennifer.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Alex.
Yes, I just want to mention briefly, we have the webinar scheduled for this winter and spring semester. So the website is bit.ly/WG 2021A, and go to this website to see the list of upcoming webinars. So we have webinars every second Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. And please register for this. And if you have any requests, you want to see a new topic covered in the webinar, feel free to send an email, training@westgrid.ca. And then, as always, all past webinars, go to the same page, click on the past title, so it'll appear in blue, and this will take you to the slides and the recording. Other online training. So as you know, we do all training now online. So the big one is WestGrid training modules starting in April. So this year we decided not to host the summer school. The problem with the online summer school is that we had 16 courses and it was really crammed into several weeks. And I think that was quite stressful for everybody, not just attendees, but presenters as well. So what we decided to do this year, instead we'll have a much longer event, maybe 3-4 months. And it will be more scattered, so much less pressure on everybody. And we'll have several training modules, so people will need to register for each module if they want to attend any event in this module. So there will be beginners, parallel computing, machine learning, and visualization, maybe something else, I don't know. So we'll be putting together the schedule in March, and sometime towards the end of March, we'll announce the website and registration, et cetera, et cetera. So we're collaborating with WestGrid Research Commons, and the reason I'm mentioning this is because it's open. So we have a series of monthly WestGrid webinars with them, and it's online and it's open to everybody. So if you're interested in registering, go to the same website, so WG 2021A. And also briefly want to mention now the U of A research computing folks have their bootcamp running. And I think most sessions are now completely full, but I checked this yesterday and they still have a couple of sessions that are still open for registration. So if you're from the U of A, you can go there and register. Well, actually starting a week from Monday, we have Compute Canada is organizing a Humanities and Social Sciences series. So the website is hss-series.netlify.app. And it's going to be 8 mini courses over 4 days. So the reading week, and there are still spots available. If you're interested, check out this website, and you can still register for the courses. So I'm very excited. There's actually a programmatory course somebody is teaching, a researcher is teaching, and there'll be some other cool topics as well. Nvidia Hackathon, just an update of where we are. So on January 15th, we closed registration. Well, Nvidia closed registration for the hackathon. So it's going to be taking place in February to beginning of March. And Nvidia, so there was 34 applications. Nvidia selected 10 teams. And Nvidia and several mentors from Compute Canada will be working with these teams to help them accelerate their code, port their codes, and speed them up on on GPUs using primarily CUDA and OpenACC. And finally, I'm sure most of you already know this, but we have the visualization contest running right now. We're partnering with IEEE Viz, and the website is right there, sciviz2021.netlify.app. And this contest is open to everybody. So the data set is a numerical simulation of Earth's mantle convection, but it's a fairly small data set in the sense that you can actually visualize it on your own laptop. So you don't need any supercomputing facilities for that. And the deadline is 6 months away. Well, it's July 31st, and we're looking not so much for, well, we're looking certainly for pretty pictures because it's visualization contest, but also we would like to have some more in-depth analysis of the flow patterns that we see in this model, in this simulation. And that's all I have.
That's great, Alex. Thanks very much for that. And by the way, we just taken a couple minutes extra, but I wanted to thank our speakers today. I wanted this to be a kind of an inaugural event and discussion, and I know that there'll be many threads that will come off of this. So thank you very much, to Cam and Jacqueline and to Steve. And Steve had to drop. I'm sorry. We really do appreciate your engagement. There's lots here. We hope to be, as a WestGrid team, broader team, working with you very closely to help you with the digital research infrastructure needs and opportunities. And my observation is, boy, there's sure a lot of synergy between academia, research, and industry. It certainly came through in everybody's presentation, and seems to be a real sweet spot of our efforts. So we hope to try to facilitate some of that development with you all as well. So thanks so much for everybody for attending today. And I just want to mention that the next session, which will be in March, will be a special edition session where we're going to work with Endrio to get a part of their listening tour so that they can get the Western Canadian voices more clear in terms of helping them drive their strategies moving forward. So look forward to that. And we look to have a very, very large and broad audience to participate. So to everybody who participated today, thank you so much. I look forward to the next town hall, and we will follow up on some of the chats and some of the opportunities that were presented today. So thanks, everybody. Have a great day and have a great weekend.